What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at TalkLouder_podcast, and of course our website, TalkLouderPodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today's guest is a well-known name in Texas metal circles. Specifically, I would say Texas underground metal. Maybe, Jason, you probably know better than I do.
Not necessarily, because I know what I like, and then I just kind of stop there. I'm not really looking for anything new that Kerry Crafton has produced or engineered on, but he's one of my earliest recordings I ever made was a couple of Watchtower songs that we recorded at Earth and Sky. Well, at Earth and Sky Studio, it's been long gone for decades, is where this guy, Kerry Crafton, is, where he was 20-something, maybe, a handful of years older than me and my troublemaking bandmates. And we won some studio time, and we went and recorded a couple songs, and those two songs ended up on the full-length album. But it was the beginnings of what people know as Watchtower Energetic Disassembly. If you read the fine print, our guest today on the Talk Louder podcast engineered and produced those two songs. Now, they were obviously remixed later on because they had to be cohesive with the rest of the 6 or 7 songs that were added to that record. But one of my, like I said, as you figured out, one of my earliest memories in the studio was working with Kerry, and we get to talk about that and relive that today. And, I have to kind of spill the beans a little bit. It's been a while since we've had a producer or an author or somebody like that on the show, but Kerry's name is always in my brain because of just my memories.
Yeah.
But I don't forget, but I just kind of, it's just over here on the shelf that he produced all of these really cool underground bands on their earliest inceptions, earliest records, if not the first record, but the second or the third or whatever. But he was there. Scratch Acid, Devastation, Agony Column, Rigor Mortis. Now, he's worked with anyone and everyone that we get to talk a little bit about and more, but you could see how excited I was when his name just came across my social media, and I went, oh my God, ding dong, he'd be a great guest on the show. And how'd you react when I threw that? Did you remember seeing his name in the fine print on a record somewhere, or?
Actually, I'll be honest. I did not know the name, but
Okay.
You pitched a couple of his credits at me, and of course that piqued my interest. Watchtower, Rigor Mortis, and then I started doing some digging. And as you said, Devastation, Dead Horse, Angkor, Butthole Surfers, Scratch Acid. The list, it just went on and
you
on
can
and
kind
on.
of stop right there. I'm not trying to stop you, but holy Christ, when you think about all that in one bucket and Kerry Crafton's name is all over it, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then you're a fan of a band that he produced.
Yes, indeed. I was among his many list of credits was the band Hagfish.
Yeah.
And I was surprised and happy to find Hagfish among his credits because I wanted to talk to him about that band. I discovered them when I was living in Galveston. They were based out of the Dallas area, and they were sort of a pop punk, for lack of better term, type band. And I became friends with the guitar player Zach Blair many years later when I moved to Austin. I still bump into him from time to time. So it was fun getting to talk to him about that. And then some more well-known names he's worked with in some capacity. Pantera, Rob Halford. He talks a little bit about working with Stevie Nicks.
Glenn Hughes.
Glenn Hughes, yes, yeah. So, the guy,
Joey Belladonna. He's on the Big Four tree.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I enjoy about doing this show is when people do music for a living, you find out very quickly that they might have a certain lane that they specialize in, but if you're going to do it for a living, you've got to be broad enough and talented enough to sort of lend your skills to a wide variety of projects. And Kerry certainly does that. And I could say that about you as well. I mean, you know, a lot of people know you as the guy from Watchtower and Dangerous Toys, but I've heard you do country western songs. I've heard you do children's Christmas songs. So, you know, if you're into it and this is what you do, you cast a pretty wide net, and it's sometimes pretty interesting to find out what all these people have done in their careers. And Kerry was definitely one of those guys, very diverse.
Well, like you said, and he talks a little bit about it. It's like, you know, you make a cool noise and then you want to record it. And hey, what was that? That would work really cool for this song that I'm working on. And anything can spark an influence for something else. And I think Kerry has got a great mind for that. And he's made a career out of doing that. Let's get into it today here on the Talk Louder podcast, Mr. Kerry Crafton. So I'm just going to dig in. So the first time that we met, and this is this is kind of a confession. I put my hand on my heart. Watchtower. We won some free studio time from winning a Battle of the Bands at Steamboat in Austin, Texas in 1985. 84, maybe. Early 85, maybe.
It would have been somewhere in there.
Yeah, Margaret Moser and Billy Gibbons and oh man, I can't remember. You know, they were judges. They were judges.
Me, yeah.
Were you a judge?
Yeah.
You were there. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I was there. That's why I made sure you won. I wanted to record you.
You fixed the fight? Yes.
No, I made sure that I picked the best band.
Well, look at you. Look at you go.
Billy wasn't originally a judge. He just was there drunk.
Oh, well, I'll take drunk.
Let me judge. So he came and stood in the middle of us and bought beers, and it was a great time.
Well, shit, I'll take a drunk Billy Gibbons as a judge on a Battle of the Bands over a sober Billy. Sober Billy Gibbons being a judge at a especially a heavy metal battle.
I was going to say, especially if Watchtower's on stage.
Yeah. So anyway, we took the prize, and we part of the. Well, shit, I don't know if it was the only prize. Anyway, it's all we needed because we got to record at Earth and Sky Studios with Kerry Crafton at the helm. And we didn't know who Kerry Crafton was. Please don't be butthurt about that.
That's because he wasn't anybody yet.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you're here today so I can relive my, God, I think I had just turned 20 years old. And we recorded Meltdown and Tyrants in Distress at Earth and Sky Studio, and you were the engineer. Yay! And what do you remember from that? Because I don't remember much, but there's a few things. What do you remember about that?
It's been so long. I remember doing it. I remember where we used the booth in those drums, and I remember where I set up the guitar amp and all that kind of stuff. I don't think there was any memorable, like, outlandish things that happened or anything like that. It was just a great time. I enjoyed it. And y'all, I'd never really heard anybody do what really is math metal before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I was loving it.
Yeah. Neither did we. And I think it was kind of interesting that Austin was. I'm giving credit to the town because we all know that Austin. There must be something in the water because there's a lot of cool shit out of Austin that's not like anything else in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
And Austin is kind of like on the map worldwide as this like hotbed for different, the like keep Austin weird thing is so people will buy shit, not don't go to Walmart, buy from the artists who make shit with their hands and their own minds here in Austin. And that was part of the whole thing, but it fit really weird. Whoever came up with that really kind of like should have won the lottery, because it really worked with what was happening musically and art-wise in Austin, Texas.
Oh yeah.
The thing that I remember about that session is Earth and Sky, which is no longer there, was an old house on I-35 by Mueller Airport.
Right. It was a daycare center up front during the day and a recording studio in the back part of the building at night.
Wow. That's nuts.
So did Kerry engineer the entire Energetic Disassembly record, or just some initial tracks?
Meltdown and
tracks.
Tyrants in Distress. Well,
Okay.
I'm sure that we wanted, and Kerry, I want Kerry to chime in here, but apparently I'm talking over him, and I apologize. Won't be the first time, probably. So I think that we wanted to try to record more songs, but we burnt up all of our free studio time just doing the 2 songs because we got studio happy, Yeah. But one thing that I remember was other than it be next to the airport, is that when the planes were landing, they would land over I-35. They would get if you were coming, man, it looked like the plane was like gonna hit the top of your fucking car, and it was loud. And so to build a recording studio next to the airport is either cheap and dumb, or I'm waiting for smart to come in, because you're gonna get some airplane shit on your recordings. But the thing is,
the guy that built it did a pretty good job. We really did have pretty good isolation in there, unless you were recording a acoustic guitar by the back door or something.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, we put. Do you remember anything about what do you remember anything about what we put on tape?
Well, those 2 songs, but no, I don't.
We made you throw a microphone out in the parking lot and record an airplane landing.
Oh. Yeah, now I do.
And you can hear it on. It was probably Billy's idea, Billy and Doug. Probably.
Before
they wanted it. Wow, we're by the airport. We're really close to it. Let's mic up the airplane. Yeah, we're just kids. And you're like, fuck it, okay. And we used it at the beginning of Tyrants in Distress, and you can hear it when you listen to the record. And every time, I mean, I don't sit around and listen to Tyrants in Distress, but when you turn that shit on, you can hear that airplane landing, and I think of it.
I have a vague memory of that. But when I listened to the Scratch Acid record, we did all kind of crazy shit like that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, what do you remember about the Scratch Acid sessions?
Really, it was a lot of fun, because when they came in there, it wasn't, most of the time you have a band. We are a genre. We must sound like this. It's all geared that way. It was like, just totally everything was experimental. I mean, they had the basic things to the song, but if I said, let's play the piano along with it at double speed and then lower it back down so it's stuff. Yeah, let's try it. Let's do it. It ends up on there. We, did a bunch of little sound effects. It was just a real fun session, and it ended up being real good for me.
Do you go ahead, Dave?
You also worked with the Butthole Surfers, and I would imagine it would be sort of similar in the sense that it's kind of an anything goes kind of. We're not a metal band, we're not a rock band, we're not a mariachi band, but if any of those influences come into play, let's go for it. Was that sort of a similar situation with those guys?
Well, that was probably even crazier. Now, I never did anything that was like the whole album or anything. I did 2 or 3 different little projects with them.
Okay.
One of them was having, and I'll forget her name, the real annoying comedian, just doesn't narrow it down much.
Sandra Bernhardt?
Yes.
How did I know that? How did I know? I pulled that out of my butt. I have no idea. You said
They
annoying.
recorded a version of Barracuda and sent it to her to do the vocals on.
Holy moly. Where can I hear that shit?
Or
Thankfully,
not.
I don't think it exists anywhere.
Wow. Okay. I didn't expect that. But
And then we did one real, like, just we put 12 all their songs on a multi-track, 2 tracks at a time to fill up all 24 and then Paul was just sitting there bringing up faders and bringing them down. It wasn't really like a medley. It was just like this pastiche of sound. So we had some fun stuff together. Yeah.
do you think as a producer and an engineer, do you feel like sometimes people don't do enough of that on their records? They don't, and it's not, I don't call it taking risk. I just call it part of the art, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously where you come from and the artists that you've worked with, just kind of like, I mean, do you feel like blessed or lucky
Blessed,
to
absolutely.
to be like just like in the same room with these like, crazy artsy fartsy rock and roll people, and you're like, fuck yeah, let's do it? Because some people would be like, why would you want to do that? That's stupid. You're going to get bleed, blah, blah, blah. It's like, let's learn the rules of this craft so we can fucking break them. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't think like that when they go to, like, I don't know, sound person school. And they just learn how to do this one thing and how this is how you're supposed to do it, and you're not using the right tool to hammer that nail into the wall. It's like someone's using a brick. You know what I mean? Well, what did a caveman use? It worked just fine, right? So
that brings up, I'm sorry.
Go, Dave.
This is a great segue, because I wanted to ask Kerry, technology has obviously played a massive role in your industry. And Jason was just talking about back in the Watchtower days, you threw a microphone out in the parking lot to capture an airplane sound or whatever. And so do you feel like, obviously the technology has made things more convenient, but in that convenience, do you lose some of the art and the creativity of reaching for things that required some ingenuity, that wasn't just punching a button on a sampler or something?
To be honest, no.
No. You enjoy the convenience.
When I was recording, the best 24 tracks, what you wanted to use. As things transitioned, okay, then I was using those 3324 digital, but tape, and that was the best thing to use. I've always embraced it, and I have no really desire to go back and ever use analog tape again. Some analog equipment, but the thing is, the equipment doesn't get the sound in my head. Mm-hmm. What I do to the sound does, and I can do that. I can make it sound just. If I did it all analog, it would sound, I think, exactly like the digital thing, because it's what I would get the sound I want.
Yeah, explain your just for some people listening, and I want to hear your take on it. Explain like what the difference would be in a modern recording, any kind of music, between tape and digital.
Well, for one thing, you were limited by the number of tracks, number of separate things you could record to either 16 or, then 24. And then, when people did put 2 machines together and sync them and get 48. But
for
still,
analog, yeah.
There's that limitation. Yeah. Also, with analog tape, every time you play it, you lose some of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many times I had a great snare sound when we cut it, and by the time I mix it, it sounds like somebody hitting a paper sack, because it just loses the trance. It loses the peak, the attack edge of the front part of it.
Yeah, you're tearing the tape up every time you fast forward, rewind, move it.
It's a little less good the next time.
Yeah,
and also it changes what you do when you're recording analog. Analog is going to take away brightness. It's going to enhance bottom. So you have to over brighten and not and watch the low end you record. You can't really just say, I want this snare sound, I'm going to get that snare sound. Once I have it recorded, it's going to sound exactly like it did. With digital, that's possible.
Yeah.
And it was that way forever.
Yeah.
And also it gives you the flexibility. I mean, I mix all kind of songs now that are 96, 136 tracks. You know.
Yeah, and you can do
have the freedom.
Sky's the limit.
Do stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And it doesn't. It's the creativity comes from here, and then you just record it on something.
Sure.
You know.
Right.
Well, let me jump in and say this. So another segue is what this is. That kind of like, it's open ended. It doesn't put a cap on any of it. There's no real answer, other than, and you know, you didn't even give your opinion. You just gave differences in what you can do, limitations and stuff. Where I can take this now is the fact that you pretty much run a school for doing what you do and what you've always done. You're like running a fucking school that teaches people how to do that shit. You're teaching someone multiple things on how to work with sound, manipulate microphones, control sound, control EQ, sound, period. Am I right? Am I close? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going somewhere with this. So the fact that you have recorded an airplane or recorded some bullshit with the Butthole Surfers and recorded some just all kinds of nutty, crazy fucking noises and shit and made music out of it, there's no rules, right? You're breaking all the rules all the time. And I said something earlier. Do you feel like, now that you're like this sort of sensei of sound, copyright, sensei of sound.
To put that on a
ears on, ears off. Ears on, ears off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, yeah, ears on, ears off. Wow, that's fucking good, dude. You're basically, you and your crew are teaching, you know, Joe Blow, like people like me and Dave, you know, to come in and like learn how to do this. At what point are you going, okay, let's learn all the rules? I said this earlier. Let's learn all the rules about what it is that we're doing here so we can break them later on when we want to really get creative. How is that? How would you sort of like put that on the table for a room full of students?
Well, I haven't taught for a few months now since I became the campus director, but when I did, and when I'm working with students individually, because I still do that, I just don't teach direct classes, but I just show them what I do. I am not a super clinical, everything's so clean and I'm wearing a lab coat kind of a recording engineer. I'm a rock and roll engineer. I like everything a little nasty, a little dirty, you know, a little edgy, you know, and again, the sound always comes from here. But until you've done enough of it to know what you're supposed to hear, you know, the thing I've told my students because I did teach mixing class for several years, is that, you know, when I first started doing this down in Austin and back when at the time of, you know, working with you, man, I a lot of times didn't, I just can't get this particular thing right, or I can't get this right, or, you know, the guitar sound, I don't know what to do with it. It's because I didn't have a goal. I was just trying techniques.
Yeah.
Techniques won't get you to the sound in your head necessarily. You know what I mean? And once I knew, I've been doing this so long, whenever like if somebody sends me something to mix, first time I listen through to it, I already kind of know what the guitars need to do, like what kind of drums it should have, you know, kind of already have a snare sound in mind, you know, stuff like that, because not because I'm a genius or anything, just because I've been doing it a long time. Anybody that's been doing this long should do that.
Yes, sir.
So I already have I have a map in my head for what I'm gonna do to those instruments in that mix to make them all fit together, to make everything be louder than everything else, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and that is, again, there is a bit of Zen almost sometimes in this, because mixing especially is very mental. You know, You use the same equipment engineering as you do mixing. You know, just recording as you do mixing.
Yeah.
But not everybody who can do a great recording can do a great mix. It's a different level.
How long have you been doing this?
I'm sorry?
How long have you been doing this, Kerry?
Since 79.
Oh, wow. Do you remember your very first credit on an album?
Well, probably on a single for Terminal Mind there in Austin.
Okay, and when would that
no,
be?
actually, that's not true. Oh gosh, what Sally Norvell's band. That was the first band I produced.
Wow.
After I had played in a band called Assistants for a while, and they were wanting to go in the studio, and they asked me, and I went in the same studio I had recorded us at. And well, one of those two was the first. I did them kind of close together.
And what year is this? About what time frame?
79.
Okay, yeah. So were you a musician before going into the engineering, producing game?
Well, there's varying opinions on that. I mean, I played guitar and have way too many of them, but I never was a guy to sit around and practice 8 hours a day. You know, to me, a guitar was an objective to get something down. Really, when I saw the Beatles back in '63 or something, and then I got a tape recorder, a little reel-to-reel recorder for Christmas that started that idea really all the way back there.
Wow.
You know, but at the time there was no way to find out how do they do that. You know, how do you know, it's just a magic thing. You could sing in this and it would sing back. You know.
Yeah.
And of course, I took it apart to see how it worked, and it didn't work after that. But
nice job.
There, came a point where I got married young. I was working as a carpenter, and the Austin building, one of the building booms, kind of fell off real hard, and I decided to go back to school. And so there was no recording schools like this. I would have killed, not literally, but I mean, I would have done almost anything to have gone to a place like this when I was there, because I went to UT and we had a 8-track Soundcraft console, a bunch of RE20 mics, all the same, a 4-track Ampex and a 2-track Scully to mix to. And that's how I was supposed to learn how to start recording and engineering. And actually, it did teach me a lot.
Yeah, the RE20s.
Students come and they're working around with Brian Wilson's old console. Brian Wilson's the one that ordered this console, was the original owner.
Wow, that's
we're using
legendary.
Computers and Pro Tools. We got $5,000 mics in there, you know, and everything else. It's like that, and it's it would have been a heaven to me. They never would have got me to leave.
So I was going to ask you how you transitioned from being an aspiring musician to becoming an aspiring producer or engineer, and it was born out of just curiosity with a tape recorder. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, originally, and once I had gone to done what little Raul's was like 100 yards from the recording studio, and the building the recording studio was on.
And you played at Raul's. You had a band and you played at Raul's.
Yeah, I was.
How old were you when you played at Raul's?
26, 25,
okay.
26.
What was your band called?
It was called F Systems.
Okay.
All right. Did you play on any cool bills with up and comers?
Big boys.
Oh, everybody back then. I mean, all the ones we played with, Standing Waves, and I think we played with Tons. We played with the Skunks, with D-Day.
Yeah.
Whatever, all those guys.
That sounds like people I worked at Another Raw Deal with when I was washing dishes.
Yeah.
I mean, a member of all of those bands was working in that restaurant while I was back there, the headbanger, washing dishes. That's fun. That's crazy.
Musicians always used to work. Is it Schlossky's or some restaurant?
Conan's, Another Raw Deal. Yeah. Old Austin is the coolest shit ever. You know that, so.
Yeah.
Well, Dave's from
started...
San Antonio, so he got here as fast as he could.
Yeah. When you started directing your energy towards the studio work, producing, engineering, were there any particular producers or engineers that you heard on albums that became sort of your mentors, or the people that you wanted to emulate?
There is an absolutely big yes to that. Roy Thomas Baker.
Wow, I got to work with Roy.
No.
I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, the second Dangerous Toys record is produced by Roy.
I saw.
Yeah.
But
Roy Thomas
to me, that really is what was the motivation when I needed to decide to go back to school in engineering. Was I heard that first Queen record, and then the second one just blew my mind. And I want to know, how do you do that? How do you get a guitar to sound like a trumpet or a violin, or, all that stuff? So that was really, and I've always been that. He's been my template.
Yeah.
Wow.
For mixing ever since, no matter what I'm mixing. It's the big, the wide, big and wide and deep.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a whole episode, Talk Louder podcast episode on Martin Birch, because Jason and I are big fans of his work. And, maybe it's just me because I'm more of a fan of the music and I don't really have the ears for the production and the engineering. But Martin is one of those guys that has his stamp on so many great albums that he becomes sort of the rock star, if you will. Because his output is so incredible. And Roy Thomas Baker, of course, being another one. You mentioned Queen, we mentioned Dangerous Toys, but he did the Cars and I think
Cheap
maybe
Trick. It
Cheap
goes
Trick.
in good.
And he run before he just fell off the cliff somewhere. I don't know, but he really kind of he was a game changer, just like Kerry just said. He was kind of a game changer.
Yeah.
Queen was probably his calling card as far as being a game changer. So, but he did
it was Dangerous Toys.
He did like Bad Company and stuff like that. He did Foreigner. He did.
There was a time when he was doing half the things that were released.
Yeah, he was on one song, like 10 songs in a row on the radio. Yeah,
exactly.
You're exactly right. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Did I see in your list of credits Pantera?
Yeah, I mean, it was minimal. I recorded some drum and guitar tracks for them for the album before Far Beyond Driven. I forget what that one is.
No, that'd be Vulgar Display.
Vulgar. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. For Vulgar Display, because they started in his dad's, Benny's dad's house, and then they were booked up, so they came down to Goodnight, and we recorded 3 or 4 days, and then I did another assistant. It was just assistant engineer while they did Diamond Benny did a song with Rob Halford. Mm-hmm. And Rob Halford was there for about a week overall doing that.
Wow.
And then they came and just recorded some demos one time or something. But
yeah, I was going to ask you about Rob Halford because I saw his name on your list of credits as well. Is this the same, or did you do something else with Rob Halford?
No, it was that. Again, they brought an engineer, but I was the second engineer, setting things up, tuning Vinny's drums and another thing like that. I have a almost great rock and roll story. I'll make it short.
No, tell us.
We're hanging out the back door there at Goodnight, and it's kind of an industrial area. So across the street, there's a bunch of welding shops and, that kind of tin buildings, that kind of thing. And there was a band over there started playing Judas Priest.
Uh-oh.
And I tried to get Rob to walk across there and walk in on him. He would not do it.
Oh.
They were keeping it real quiet. Nobody knew he was in town.
Yeah.
We didn't want, so it was a total hush-hush thing. But yeah, that would have been great. I always wish we could have done that.
So what exactly were the Abbott brothers doing with Rob Halford? What was the outcome of that?
A song for a movie soundtrack, some horror movie thing. I forget the name, called White Heat.
Okay, all right. Wow. Well, to be involved in Vulgar Display of Power, that's pretty amazing. I mean, obviously that is a classic metal album that'll stand the test of time, and you got to put a fingerprint on it. So congratulations.
Yeah. Well, I have
Yeah, I was more heavily involved with Rigor Mortis, but
Yeah, I was just gonna. That's a perfect segue, Kerry. Before we get into Rigor Mortis and the love of Bruce Corbett and Mike Scascia, let's talk about Devastation and how you met Rodney and where did you which record did you do of Devastation?
Signs of Life.
Signs of Life, right? Oh, there's talk of a reissue of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's how many things I did 25, 30 years ago are coming back out again.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Who were you contacted by to do Signs of Life?
Metal Blade.
Metal Blade. Are you sure? You sure it wasn't Combat?
Were they on Combat?
Yeah, they were on Combat.
Yeah, I think my first contact with them, I guess that I met their person at early South by Southwest.
For Devastation?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think they played at that one. But then again, some of these things get jumbled up.
Right. So anyway, it seems like it would have been Rodney Dunsmore reaching out to you for some reason. But if it was a label, that's cool. They were probably looking for.
Remember.
That's okay. Looking for somebody in Texas to record a band that's already living in Texas makes way too much sense, and I wasn't even thinking about that.
Well, again, that's kind of what, and the things I did, some things with Metal Blade and Triple X, and
right.
What was the one Agony column was on?
Big Chief.
Yep.
I
was doing most of the really good metal bands from Texas back then, of course, except for yours.
Yeah. So the fact that you recorded, Agony column, Devastation, and Rigor Mortis, just those three right there, in my book makes
Dead Horse and Angkor Wat, yeah.
Dead Horse, right? You did Angkor Wat as well?
Yeah. Angkor Wat.
Holy crap, dude! You recorded all of my friends, and and all of those bands in their own right are legendary.
Yeah, I love them all.
Juggernaut. You did
mix.
Juggernaut.
Yeah.
How did you? So was Metal Blade probably contacted you about Juggernaut, or was it someone in the band?
Again, dude, it's been so long, and I was
Right.
never big in the business part. I talked
Right.
to whoever said, yeah, this is, we'd do it. But especially with indie labels like that, it's usually all phone calls.
Of course. Yeah.
I have a big memory of that too much. Now, when you start dealing with Island and Sony and stuff, then you see more people face to face. There's more meetings, so you have a bigger memory of it. But I did two things for Metal Blade for Juggernaut. Both really cool. Again, they both got reissued here in the last 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm kind of thumbing through some records just I have at arm's length, and I believe I have those really close by. I could sit here and talk about just that for, hours, but let's get into Rigor Mortis. So the idea I have Devastation Idolatry right here, and that's I don't think you did that one, did you?
No, I was kind of disappointed I only got to do one. I don't know what happened. They didn't like it.
Rodney Dunsmore, lead vocalist, is one of my oldest friends, and you probably could have guessed that. And he's the best, man. And he was on our show. He's been on the Talk Louder podcast before.
Cool.
Yeah.
I really like that record. We'll go long periods listening to it, and I'll throw it on. And I go, damn, that's good. I like
Shit,
that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that was a record that, like I said, there's talk of a reissue. I have friends who have small labels that are always talking about, warning, we might want to do that record,
Cool.
Oh, let me ask you this. Maybe I'm doing some homework for them, right? Some reconnaissance work. Do you have masters from that shit, or is the label took that? Got you thinking.
Well, I have a bunch of tapes at home that I have talked to a guy here, Jeff Mount, about doing transfers. One of them is the Rigor Mortis second record, a third record technically, the second one I did,
right.
versus the Earth. I'm going to probably do something and remix some of them. And I'm looking through that. I think I may have the Devastation master. But
Holy
I can't.
shit!
It's just like I have a vision of it being on the side of a reel.
It's a 2-track.
It's a
master.
It's still a 1/2 inch. They were skinnier.
Oh, okay. But it's a master mix.
Well, I think it would be the master tracks,
Yeah.
all the separate tracks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now I have
shit.
mixes. I mean, I have digital copies of all the original mixes.
The final mix, right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's probably what they would need. Anyway, we'll have to talk. I'll have to put them in touch with you if that's okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rigor Mortis, I have to say this. Bruce and Mike are gone, and they were legend. They're legends they're immortal to me, and they were legends when they were alive, and they were friends, and they were just incredible people, and like top notch at what they fucking did. Now, everyone in Rigor Mortis is a living legend to me.
Yeah.
I absolutely, I mean, the things that Casey is doing and has done and will continue to do, the guy is a walking, living legend.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's fucking
He's a
crazy.
cool dude.
Say what? What was
He's
that?
a cool dude too.
Yeah, he's the nicest guy in the room. Yeah. So tell us what was a day in the studio with Rigor Mortis like?
It was nuts. Now I remember how I got that one.
Okay, tell us.
It was the scratch acid connection. Here's your 6 degrees.
Okay.
The Capital and the scratch acid they made. All the A&R people loved that thing. And it didn't sell much. That was Jeff Lyles introduced me, and that was the thing that they were like, "Oh wow, you did scratch acid," and I was like, "Yeah, nobody in Austin even cares about it. Why?"
Wow.
At that time.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that was at a South by Southwest. And the first time I saw them was in the Union Ballroom there at UT.
Oh yeah.
The PA that was only for the vocals, and them playing in a room that's like a big hardwood library,
Well.
And it was a big ball of hair. It was a mess. But that's where Rachel first introduced me and showed me the band.
Wow.
And then it was a few months later, she reached out and we set it up. And, actually that record is what paid for the move to Dallas. I had to close my studio, and at the time, man, I was getting a lot more stuff happening up here. There was a lot of label stuff happening up here, at the time. And so that, I used that to move on up here.
In the DFW area.
But it ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been up there a long time now. What year was that you moved out of Austin? Was it like late 80s?
I moved over Christmas week of 87 into 88, and we went in the studio in the end of January, mid-February, something like that.
Wow.
For 33 straight days, 7 at night till 7 in the morning.
Now, wow. So to be clear, you mentioned someone, and it just sparked the only brain cell I have. You said Rachel. Is it Rachel from the label? Was that someone?
Yeah, Rachel Matthews. Sorry.
Yeah, Rachel Matthews from Capitol.
She's Capitol, yeah.
Capitol Records, right? That's what I thought. I think she signed Megadeth to Capitol as well. I don't know.
I think so.
Could have been, or maybe William Howell was involved in that as well. Anyway, the interesting thing is having Rachel involved at a South by makes total sense, but the idea of scratch acid and Rigor Mortis makes it seem a little odd, because even though you could say both are very extreme, but they're extreme of each other, even both being extreme. On the art side of it, right?
Right.
The
spirit-wise, not that different.
Correct. Spirit-wise, not that different. Yes, you are correct about
Loud,
that. Wow.
nasty, and vulgar, and and aggressive sounding, and everything else. It was a different music form, but it was basically the same kind of spirit in both.
Yeah. Was Was Rachel playing you demos, or had you heard Rigor Mortis before, or were you watching them live?
Well, the first time I heard him was live, just that one time at the Union, and then
Oh, okay.
Jeff gave me a cassette that they recorded out in Dallas a
Okay.
long time ago, and it had the kind of the rough forms of most of the first record.
Yeah. Okay.
So that I had that to go by, and then we showed up here. You asked what a day in the studio was like. Sorry, about 5 minutes ago before I ran us down that rabbit hole.
No, that's okay.
But
That's what this show is all about.
It was
Trust
crazy
me.
because I'm from Austin. Austin, man, it's cool and it's laid back.
Chill.
And,
Yeah.
it's all everybody, it's like that. So I go up here and I'm in this huge studio, doing a record for Capitol. And those boys were wild boys at that time.
Yeah.
They all grew up into absolutely fine men, but they were a bit on the crazy side. We were the producer, I was the engineer. The producer was David Ogilvie from Skinny Puppy.
Okay.
And Rachel
Wow.
purposely did that you were talking about she did that on purpose.
Okay.
We were watching Faces of Death on the TV all the time, all the snuff film, where everybody shows everybody killing or dying and stuff. And I was like, man, this is a lot different than Steve Fromholtz.
Yeah, I'll say.
Not that I hadn't done a lot of music, I had done other music like that, but it was like, Dallas ain't Austin. And I really thought I thought Bruce was an absolute psychopath when I.
Well, I can understand him having the Faces of Death on because the lyrical content and where his Bruce's kind of, I don't want to call it shtick, but his thing was, lyrically and sort of physically sort of emoting what that is. I could see Faces of Death being a backdrop for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, all their stuff. It was horror based.
Yeah.
Varying themes and stuff, but it's all kind of that way, and that's what Bruce is always involved in the horror fest and everything.
Yes.
All here and all, and it was again such a big change that I really was like, man, these guys might really cut someone into 5 easy pieces,
Oh no.
Also, it was kind of like the deal is like they were a family, a gang, So I had to prove my way into that gang,
Mm-hmm.
So early on it was like, giving me weird nicknames and stuff. Nobody was mean or cruel, but it was kind of like, okay, you got to remember you're the outsider.
Yeah.
Just like when you try to initiate a dog into a new pack, everybody's going to tell him to back off for a while.
Yeah.
But it didn't take long. And of course they became lifelong dear, family. They just, to me. So it turned out good.
You mentioned a major label earlier. I think you said Island or Chrysalis, and it doesn't really matter. But in your experience as either a producer or an engineer, and Jason might have some input on this question too. I've always been curious because I'm ignorant on the subject. But you as the producer, let's say, or the engineer, I would imagine you might have a little less say as the engineer. But when you're recording for a major label, how much does the label leave you alone to do what you do, and how much do they push back when they say the sound isn't sonically what we want for radio or whatever it is they're looking for? Have you ever butted heads with somebody, a suit at the label?
Actually, no, I never really ran into that. The Rigor record, of course, they didn't. You wouldn't expect that maybe they would have waited, what, but, that one, they didn't. And like when I did the things I did for Island, now Kim Bowie was their A&R person at the time and just came to Dallas and set up that Deep Ellum record, the sounds of Deep Ellum, where we recorded 10 different bands from around the city up here. And she was there while we did it. But in that case, and in some, a session I did down in the Bahamas, she was just there facilitating, but she never made any kind of musical opinions or anything. So, I mean, I haven't done 100 projects like that or anything. So,
Well,
So,
that does happen sometime. It's happened,
Oh, yeah.
right in front of me a few times, but it wasn't it didn't make or break the song or the record. It's just some people have an opinion and they express it. It doesn't usually have to stick.
right. I was just curious, especially, the higher up the ranks you get, what is the role of the label in all this? How much do they stay out of your way and let the producer be the producer? And how much do they push back and say, it's still a little too raw for radio, or it's a little too, the song is a little too long? How much input do they have versus letting you do what you do as the expert?
It varies a lot by genre and stuff. I mean, pop and, probably the upper level hip hop stuff now is going to be more subject to that than small label underground metal bands and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it happens. I mean, because if Beyonce's doing something, there's probably going to be 13 guys involved in it and 17 producers and stuff like that. So I guess that would be the ultimate expression of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously it does happen. It's more in those type of things, and of course, less and less as there are not really major labels doing near as much as they used to either.
Right.
It was true. It happened. I mean, a lot of times, because originally, the role of the producer was he worked with the A&R person to pick the songs the singer would perform.
Right.
They didn't have people come in writing their own songs, bringing their own band. Okay, you're Ella Fitzgerald. Let's find out what Ella needs. We need a song for Ella to do. Well, we'll ask, all this famous songwriters to send them stuff. A&R would talk with the producer about which one they thought would be the best. They would deliver it to the orchestra and teach them to play it, and Ella would come in and sing on it. So that was Frank Sinatra, any of those people too. It's the same kind of thing back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that kind of comes from. I feel like that has been happening. I mean, Elvis, that's been going on the whole time.
Oh yeah,
it's very
same thing.
Yeah.
Well, A&R stands for artist repertoire. It means the guy the person who basically is picking the songs and everything. Those have all changed over the years, kind of. Then A&R just became the person kind of signing the band.
Yeah.
Right. And then the producer was more of the person picking the songs and doing all that and stuff like that. So everything kind of changes over time. Now, producer just means I have GarageBand on my laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's exactly what producer means these days. I had to, I don't have to Google YouTuber, but there's YouTube stars, and that just I'm baffled by that.
Yeah.
There's no you're the artist and the producer, and you're just in your own room being creative, and there's something really cool about that, and there's something socially unnerving about that, because it's not really live music. It's not really it's not five guys in the garage and then next thing you know they've really worked hard and become the biggest rock band in the world.
In general, Prince got away with it pretty well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, as far as the control freak and being able to play everything. Well, there was, and Stevie Wonder did kind of the same thing where he played a lot of the instruments, and Lenny Kravitz followed suit, and it makes sense for a little while. And even Dave Grohl did it. First Foo Fighters, that's all him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the album I sent you that I just released, it's pretty much all me programming and writing and everything else except for little guest appearances.
Yeah. So let's talk about that real quick. So you are producing music, but you're literally writing and producing music, because you have GarageBand on your laptop. Sorry, I'm just being funny. Right.
I do it on the phone.
Right. People do it on their phone or shit. Yeah, you have all that stuff sitting behind you, but you do it on your phone. Right. Where can people go hear Kerry Crafton creations?
Well, I did this to make me finish a bunch of stuff that was laying around and almost finished for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And most of them kind of started as things I sell to music libraries, because I've been doing that for a while, not real regular because I just don't get around to it, or it takes me forever to finish anything. but I have over the years sold to several, the big music libraries and stuff, and so these are all some of these kind of started that. Sometimes I just pick up my guitar and I'm at home and I start playing something and I think that I'd like to make a song out of that. And so I go in there and make a song out of that.
Well,
And
that's how it's that's
like that. Yeah.
yeah, that's how it's supposed to happen anyway, kind of naturally anyway.
So anyway, I just had my 69th birthday this last May 29th.
Unbelievable. Happy birthday.
And to celebrate, well, thank you. To celebrate that, I made myself a deadline to finish all those. I did 5 or 6 videos for them. And it's just on a website of mine. It's free, kerrycrafton.com, pretty easy.
Yeah.
And just click on there. You can purchase it for $0.
Perfect.
All you have to do is put your email, right. So I can send you the zip file. So
perfect.
Wow. And I'm going to post some of the videos on YouTube too. I need to get to that. I haven't yet, but I will. I have a YouTube channel.
Good.
I might get to it. Right now there's just a couple of War Beast things on it, but
oh, that's right.
War
so
Beast.
you did the War Beast. Did you do all of the War Beast stuff?
No, I only did 2. I mixed 2 songs that got left off one of the last 2 albums
of the housecore stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it didn't have really lyrics and stuff at the time. And Bruce had written them and had written lyrics and wanted those finished. And so at the time when he was kind of in that direction, he said, "Man, I want to hear these done. Would you mix them?" And so I said, "Of course."
Okay.
So I mixed those 2 songs. And
he may have sent me those actually. I may have those.
Monster was one.
I'm sorry?
One of them was named Monster, and the other one was about his brother, and I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
What the title of that, but anyway.
Okay. Well,
so
I'll send it to you to make sure you have them.
Great.
When I was looking over your list of credits, I mean, it's exhaustive. You've been involved in so much music, and I want to get to this a little later on. Besides, rock and roll and music, you've done movie soundtracks and TV commercials and things of that nature. But one of and the Texas connection, of course, is very strong. We've mentioned Rigor Mortis, Watchtower, Dead Horse, Scratch Acid, Butthole Surfers, Angkor. It goes on and on. Devastation. But one of the names that jumped out at me, because I'm a big fan, was Hagfish.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about Hagfish, because I love that Buick Man record.
Yeah. That we did up here at the Goodnight Audio, where I basically was my home. I freelanced there. Basically, it was where I did all my work. And we did that for Patrick Keel's label with David Denard that's up here. They had a label, Dragon Street.
Dragon Street, yes.
Yeah, so we did that. Because I worked with Patrick a whole lot in Austin. All of his early stuff I worked with him on. We kind of both moved to Dallas at the same time.
So Hagfish, for people listening that don't know, that aren't familiar, I would say, just to put it in a box, I would call it like pop punk kind of music.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, very short pop punk songs.
Yeah, somewhere along the line of Green Day or something like that, Ramones influenced or whatever. But it jumped out at me, number one, because I'm a fan, and number two, because a lot of your pedigree is metal and very avant-garde, experimental, kind of abrasive sort of stuff, I guess. And Hagfish jumped out at me because, I remember getting that album and listening to it. And I run into Zach Blair here in Austin from time to time because I guess he's lived here for years and years, and he's friends of the Riverboat Gamblers, who are friends of mine. And you're probably aware of the Riverboat Gamblers being from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But yeah, I wanted to pick your brain on what it was like to work with Hagfish, because they obviously have a sense of humor.
Yeah, they were kind of crazy, but it was fun. I mean, they really were pretty serious in the studio, except for, what was the lead singer's name? Was it George?
I want to say George was the drummer. Was it Donovan? No, you're right. Yeah, George. George.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He was crazy. He was taking nude pictures of him and his girlfriend out in the hall, and right, and they run around. But the band all came in, were pretty straight ahead. It was fun. I really enjoyed those sessions. That was fun.
Yeah, the album is called Buick Men. They did another one after that called Hagfish Rocks Your Lame Ass, and I don't know if you were part of that one. I know you were part of Buick Men. And for anyone listening out there, if you're into the Ramones or Green Day or that sort of thing, check out Hagfish. Another name that jumped out as being a little, left of center for your pedigree was I saw Stevie Nicks in your list of credits. In what capacity did you work with Stevie Nicks?
Well, I recorded a couple of different songs with her 2 different times. And man, if you're going to do this business a long time, I've worked with, Stevie Nicks and Glenn Hughes, and I've done a bunch of hip hop stuff that did what, and I did the demos. I got Jessica Simpson signed. So,
Wow.
if you're going to be, especially if you're going to be a producer or engineer, I mean, you got to be able to do anything. I mean, I've done a bunch of country stuff.
Sure.
So I get all of it. You just have to. But Stevie was kind of a part owner or something of Goodnight. We had her 150-year-old 9-foot white Steinway there in our studio because she didn't want to have it in California because of earthquakes.
Wow.
And she would pop in once in a while. So we came in and did a song called All the Beautiful Worlds one time. And basically just me and the band in that case. And then she came back and did a special song for Jane Goodall called Jane, apparently, and that she recorded for a special event for a film, I think. But that was pretty cool. And when I was going to college, or after I got out of college, I ran a limousine service, and I was also her limousine driver in San Antonio for 3 days one time.
Far out.
Wow.
Wow.
She did not remember me.
She didn't remember you. What about the Glenn Hughes session?
Oh, well, again, it was a demo thing. When he first got clean, he was also a friend of Gordon and the guy that owned the studio and everything. And he came in and we recorded a song just to kind of get him back in the studio and get going again because he had, been in rehab for a while. And then he did a couple of Christmas albums with Keith Olsen that they sent me to master. So yeah, Glenn, I was more star-shocked by Glenn than a lot of people because when I was early young, man, Trapeze and the song Medusa was just loved it.
Yeah.
And to me, the guy that played and sang, Medusa and Trapeze it really impressed me. I loved that song.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, Glenn Hughes, to this day, his voice is just amazing. And I'm sure it was.
The Deadly Daisies he's playing with now are awesome.
Yeah.
Me and Dave went and caught a couple songs of Dead Daisies, and they blew our mind. Glenn especially.
There's a lot of good new, whatever you want to call that genre of rock band, riff rock is what I call it. Kind of covers, that are out there. Black Rainbows, and my Apple Music automatic play introduces me to a lot of great new bands because it keeps playing things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Glenn Hughes, I obviously that was huge for you. Who's on your bucket list to work with? Who have you not worked with that you're just dying to work with?
That's a loaded question, Dave.
Nobody. You know what? Because for a long time, it's like I try not to at all get involved in the recording part of the and the dealing with the musician part. You get it recorded, send me the files, I'll mix it. I'm pretty scrying gear. I'm pretty good for a 70-year-old dude, but I just not into all the hard work part of it anymore. I always thought recording was just something I had to do, so I got to mix it.
Yeah.
The mixing part has always been, okay, now I get to do what I love to do.
Okay, well let me change up the question then. So somebody already does the recording. Who do you want to mix?
Clutch.
Ah, okay. Hey, that should be within reach. That seems like it. Seriously, that seems like it would be within reach because they're a pretty big band, but they're not they're not the Foo Fighters or the Beatles or anything. And
They were some of the really best.
and your pedigree is pretty stellar, so it seems to me that could happen someday.
Well, we shall see.
Let's talk
Jason will
about
make a few
Agony
phone
Column.
calls.
Let's talk about Agony Column.
Okay.
Were you recording them in Austin? And was that right before you moved to Dallas? That was right before you moved to Dallas?
Yeah, I recorded one right before I moved up here, and then I went back and we went to that. What was the studio right down there next to the Terminex Bug? Lone Star.
Okay. Yeah.
Lone Star Studio. And it was kind of like that. They called me and I came down there, and I think that one was for Big Chief.
Right.
And so we set up down there, and I went down there and we spent whatever, probably a long 4 or 5 days recording that whole record.
Yeah.
There in Lone Star Audio.
Were you already a fan of theirs? Did you already know the guys?
Not when they first came in, when I had my own studio.
Right.
The first time they came in, we did The Rain Comes Down, which is still one of my favorite things I've ever recorded. We re-recorded it for the second, but I still don't like it as well as I do the first. Mm-hmm. It's just the first one caught something. Their first time in the studio, youth energy, or I don't know,
Yeah, the magic.
Just had a magic, and I would used to just put that in the car and just blow my speakers up listening. One of my favorite things I ever recorded. And so that was, but then we came back and did the full album, and then we did a second album. But
yeah,
that was kind of it.
Well, I've always thought I'm a bit too close to it because I'm in a band with the Bat Lord, with Stuart, but the first time you hear something like that, someone gives you just a cassette tape or something. This would have been in the '80s, of course, and I'm like, this doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard. It's like, what did they call it? Hillbilly death metal? And this is
something like that.
Yeah, this is pre. I was into death metal and black metal before they even called it that. But Agony Column is neither black metal, it's not death metal. But the hillbilly,
about 4 Jeeps and whiskey and.
Well, yeah, and they're talking about it's almost like the South is going to rise again attitude mixed with like punk and thrash metal and boogie woogie sprinkled all over it.
Yeah.
And the lyrics sort of create that, but there's definitely something happening in what Stuart was doing on guitar, which was very...
Oh, yeah, he was unique.
Yeah. He's still very unique and hyper intelligent and not afraid to play dumb rock and roll shit on the guitar in order to create what it is that, the backdrop to what Richie was, the devil chicken, what Richie was trying to do. And I think that it was just a magic sauce. So to be there in the beginnings of that, I think once again makes solidifies their legendary status, but as well as yours. Had you...
Well, they were kind of the Austin version of what Dead Horse was to Houston.
True.
A little bit different kind of a redneck, a little bit different kind of a... Yeah. But, both work in their city, both appropriate for, where they came from and what was going on.
I always thought that they were like the hillbilly Merciful Fate. Like they were the hillbilly, like, devil metal, but there was this, like, boogie woogie shit, rock and roll, country sort of, almost, Stuart doesn't play slide, but it had, his solos were, very chicken picking kind of a vibe, but it was thunderous, and there was this, there's still, to this day, I don't feel like there's anything that touches that as stylistically.
And Ricky with that fretless bass,
Yeah, it was Crow.
Crow, I mean, yeah,
Crow.
Paul.
Yeah, Paul. And a custom fretless bass at that.
Yeah, he's quite a
Uh,
guy. I still keep up with him on Facebook and
yeah,
stuff. He lives
he's
out in
the
the Woodford
best.
years. So he's
Yeah,
amazing.
he's a good guy. Um, wow.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're talking about stuff like this, because today some of that wouldn't be so out of left field. But if you go back and just think about some of the bands we've talked about today, Agony Column, Scratch Acid, Butthole Surfers, there was Dead Horse. There was a time when that was so. Again, I'm going to use the term avant-garde because it just didn't fit into a box. It was all very experimental, and nowadays, I guess it wouldn't seem so oddball because so many other bands have come along in their wake that have sort of built on that foundation. But Kerry here has had a hand in the early stages of all that stuff before it was even. I don't think it's still a genre, but but at least you could sort of describe it to somebody today, and they'd go, "Oh yeah, so it'd be a little something like this," and they wouldn't be too far off the mark. But try explaining Agony Column to somebody, back in the late '80s or something, they wouldn't go, "What?" And so, and someone in your
Like Newman and Flock of Seagulls and all that.
yeah, and from your perspective. And from your perspective, trying to capture all that, I'm sure was a very unique experience, if not challenging in some ways, because you're putting together seemingly disparate parts to make a cohesive whole, and there wasn't really a template for that back in those days.
Yeah, I've always loved to mash up, in whatever form, So I like taking, like I said, putting the piano on. Nobody would have thought we were going to put piano on a Scratch Acid record or have a 4-part string quartet, play on a Scratch Acid record. Nobody thought I was going to have cellos and strings and on a Nemesis record, stuff like that. So that's what I mean. I don't want to follow the genre's rules. That's why I like stuff that doesn't have one yet. Early hip hop was like that. It's not that way now. Now it's very formulated and has very strict rules you have to go by, and you better sound like that. Right. But in the early days, it was very experimental, and all these guys were the same way. It's like, we're not trying to copy anybody. What do we think sounds cool?
Yeah. That's interesting, because I remember listening to music, and then you'd hear bands on the radio. Eventually, you heard like a Jane's Addiction or a Faith No More or something like that, and I remember thinking that was bizarre, especially to be coming off the radio, Soundgarden, and but that stuff was percolating beneath the surface even before then, and here in Texas there was a lot of it apparently, and you were right in the middle of it all, so that's really cool.
I've been really lucky to work with some really great people, great musicians, and great musical concepts.
I said it earlier. Being there in early stages, and in Austin when Austin was really cool. That's right, I said it. Austin used to be cool. And you were part of Cool Austin. The bands that you've worked with that we've been mentioning and talking about, and a slew of bands that me and Dave probably don't even know about that you've worked on, even back then. I wanted to sort of talk about precedents, and when you think about like I could just say Metallica Kill 'Em All as a starting point, because everybody knows that record, and the way that the record was recorded and the way that it sounds. As far as I know, they haven't remixed that, because they could have. The band owns their own masters. They could have remixed that, and made it sound a certain way. The thing is I don't believe they have. So when you go back to pre-'83 and what had been, just a good, strong, punchy high gain. I'm using words that didn't even really exist when you talk about styles, thrash metal guitar tone.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I have to say the techniques that we're using, where you have the fast alligator, you know, the double picking, that kind of thing, and the solos
Right.
were played that way. Part of the riffs were that way, as well as the sledgehammer downstroking at 100 miles, you know, which is basically coming from, when you think about it, give him full credit, is Johnny Ramone, who was all
Yeah.
downstroke, super fast. You could go back to Dick Dale. Dick Dale. I mean, go way back. But when you talk about extreme music, and you know, we've already mentioned them. Devastation. Mike Scascia is the king of, you know, guy.
Absolutely.
His hand didn't even move. It was like a twitch, and I could watch him play for hours and just go, how is that possible? How is he?
You were watching a hummingbird's wing, where you just see the blur there. You don't see anything individual. You see the blur.
That is a perfect description. So, recording that style of guitar playing, or just and spread it out, you know, mash it with a dough roller, you know, and just call it the song, the style. You know, when I think about making the early Watchtower recordings in the mid 80s, you know, Kill 'Em All was out. Mega, you know, a lot of bands were, you know, that style of guitar playing and those tones that created what we now know as thrash metal or speed metal, or, you know, before 1980, what are we talking about that had that? There's not a whole lot that really comes to mind. I'm not really an archivist and a historian about it, but not a lot of things. You know, when I heard Kill 'Em All,
I mean, before that, you know, the most thing thinking like that's probably like Communication Breakdown or something, and that's not near the same.
no, it's not. But yeah, you think about like or Judas Priest. You can think early 70s and Judas Priest, but the thing is that the tone, it was really their technique, which was the monster there. Glenn Tipton on the riff on Exciter, and that could have been a hillbilly riff. It could have been like, you know, it could have
bluegrass.
Bluegrass kind of, you know, fast double picking stuff, which, hell, when you think about that's punk rock, but it's also, well, ring your partner round and dokey doing around, you know. So music is music is music is music. You put it in a box or whatever, but the application and the way you record it can be what separates. So to have a high gain guitar tone, it has to be precision, the knobs on the amp, where he's holding, how the guy's holding the pick, where his palm rests on the strings. Let's talk about your part of it now. Where the fuck does the microphone go? What is the EQ settings on the strap on the board? What's the preamp? What kind of bullshit are you putting between the microphone and the tape machine in 1981, 82, 83? You get it? What the fuck? There's
not
magic
much.
here. Yeah.
EQ compression and miking.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I really got into early on too. And this was more of a Jimmy Page, you know, production influence, was having the depth not be this wash of reverb, but having it be an apparent acoustic space.
Yeah.
You know, so it sounds like they're really in something. It's a room or it's a canyon or whatever, you know, it is, but it's not just some digital, you know, like I said, just a wash. It actually sounds like something physical. And that's what, you know, kind of Jimmy Page. And so, you know, back then it was what you had to put it, most of the things you did to guitars back then you did before the mic, before the amp. So, you know, you had, you know, the rat pedal or the green overdrive or whatever, and get your tone there. And then you just try to capture that. It's really still the same process.
Yes.
I mean, you know, I have a way. I like to mic guitar cabinets I haven't seen too many people do it exactly that way. It doesn't mean I'm special or that it's really good. It's just what I always do, and I've always got it out of it.
Yeah.
So I have always avoid the voice coil, and I tend to mic it kind of a 45-degree angle to the speaker cone, or actually almost straight onto the speaker cone, but a 45-degree angle to the speaker. Does that really make any difference? I don't know. It's just it works, so I quit doing it. I don't quit doing it. And then I'll add room mics or another distant mic or a totally different kind of mic on a different speaker so you can blend them. I've done it, that was back in the old days, like when I was doing some stuff with Joey Belladonna. We, did a whole album and recording the guitars. I had discovered a vitalizer, which is an outboard piece of gear, which is kind of like an oil exciter to make, way oversimplify it, but that kind of a thing.
Right.
And we set up, and I had it set up on a send to blend in, and we set up like 8 mics, and me and Joey and Paul went through changing different levels of mics until we got the sound. We go, man, that sounds great. And then we put the vitalizer on it, and it sounded tremendous.
Just to be clear, did you say Joey Belladonna?
Yeah.
The singer for Anthrax.
You're right.
Yeah.
He wasn't with Anthrax. I did those things.
Oh, okay.
I worked with him in between period when he left Anthrax.
The in-between period. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you got some
We
big
did a whole
four.
album, and then I
Just put you on the big four. That put you on the big four tree right there, dude.
How did you connect with Joey Belladonna?
Again, that was to the studio owner. Basically, he was kind of specking Joey, trying to do a solo album during that period, and it really is a damn good record. But that was when everybody was, oh no, that sounds so old. We were looking for grunge. We want more Nirvana. We don't want that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was a weird time for metal. I saw him tour that record. I saw it at the back room.
He toured with Motorhead, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, what was the album called, Kerry? Do you remember?
As far as I know, it never got released.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I think he.
And then
I think that it did. I think that it did. I think it had a single. Okay.
And then once I went to Syracuse and recorded with him and a guitar player named Joe Stump.
Oh, yeah.
If you're one of those Berkeley guitar players, you know Joe Stump.
Yeah.
If you're not, you probably might not have ever heard of him, but he is amazing.
Joe Stump is excellent, and he was like, the fill-in guy for like Dokken or somebody who, some hot shot guy had to leave his band, and Joe Stump was the guy that came in and just
I think he recently did some work with Ozzy.
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, he was amazing. We recorded, I think, 4 songs during that one.
Wow. So I touched on something earlier that I wanted to come back to real quick, just sort of a sidebar, because I do want to acknowledge this part of your career as well. Outside of the music and the hard rock, heavy metal, whatever, movies and TV commercials. What movies, soundtracks, or TV commercials have you worked on that we would be familiar with?
Probably none. Again, they were all kind of underground movies too. There's one called Saints and Sinners. That's about a tough cop in in Louisiana. It's really a pretty cool movie, but still worked on it for 2.5 years. There came a time period where I was like, okay, I'm fed of working in the music business, because I had a couple of shots too. If I was going to take my big shot, I should need to go to LA. And I did not want to do it. I decided to stay here and I'll do what I can do, because I just do this because I love it. I'm not going to raise my kid or take my wife to LA.
Yeah.
And so I did. I kind of, after the Nixon's kind of thing right about then, I went, okay, I'm going to just find another job. So I went doing production, and in that you do a little everything, So yeah, I worked on, part of those years was for a big Republican political consultant, and so we did a lot of, political things during the season, and then off season we did a couple of those kind of low budget movies. So,
yeah.
I've done at some point. I've done just about everything you can do in audio.
Yeah, and I would imagine most people in your shoes kind of do. That's how you put bread on the table, right?
Tell us about your school, Media Tech, and what's going on, and what you kind of day in the life of directing the school.
Well, we are an associate level, junior college. Basically, you can get an associate's degree in recording arts, also film and TV, and we have an acting program.
Wow.
And stuff too. And this basically started as the Sound Lab.
Yeah.
Over in Las Colinas, where everything used to get done. Again, all the rest of the big studios, big studios are dead everywhere except, the both coasts pretty much. And Russell Whitaker, who I went to college with, we were in the same classes at UT back then, started a school. And it's been, gosh, whatever that was, 25 years ago or something since he first started it. And we're all accredited and offer an associate's degree. And I've been here for 10 years. And it's odd because even when I was going to UT and they had no way to teach anything, the equipment was so poor, I was like, when I get old, I think I'd like to teach. And here I am. I'm old and I got to teach.
All right.
I'm the campus director here now. It's great because, I do a minor Austin city limits kind of thing 3 or 4 times a year where I bring a band in, we shoot them in there on our big stage and, and put it together and do videos, and one thing and another. So it's really cool. Media Tech Institute, we have one in Houston and one in Dallas.
And you did have one in Austin on South Congress.
Yeah, we did, but Austin's oversaturated with anything along those lines.
Yeah, South First. My bad, not South First is where it was. Yeah. I've actually went to that.
There at least.
Is that where it was?
Yeah. What was that studio? It was in the back of the Opera House.
Arlen.
Yeah, it was.
Arlen.
It was connected with Arlen for years.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then and then it moved down South First. I thought Media Tech did.
Yeah, I think that happened right before I really started working here. That's been a while back.
Okay.
And then they closed probably 5 years ago or something like
Correct. Yeah, I had some friends going there, and it was a cool facility. It was cool.
Yeah.
They had a lot of rooms, and they were always busy. Every time I was there, they were busy. Well,
look us up on Facebook and Instagram and your social media, and you can see what it looks like here.
Yeah. Well, from the looks of things, it looks like there's a lot of knobs and buttons and lights and things to look at. We have 3 SSL studios, so wow,
it's pretty cool.
Cool.
I'm still here. I still get to get up and go to the studio every day. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Well, you're a legend in my eyes, and I just love it that you've recorded my friends, and you've helped introduce the world to living legends and some who don't walk the earth anymore, who are still legends in my book, and you know who I mean. Yeah. I'm speaking of Bruce Corbett, Mike Skasha, and God, there's probably more. One more thing about Bruce before we wrap here. I was fairly randomly sent a link to a documentary about the Texas Jam.
Yeah.
And Bruce Corbett is in that fucking film, and I never knew that.
Well, Bruce was a huge Aerosmith fan, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So is there some sort of?
If you remember around Bruce long, you heard about the '78 Texas Jam before long.
Yeah. That's right. But
what's creepy about that is it shows him being interviewed, and you can tell he's kind of near a cemetery.
Yeah. No, he's standing in. Really? Oh my God! You just blew my mind.
I just found that out because a friend of mine saw it and said, "I think I know what that is." And he asked somebody who works there, and they said, "Yeah, that's the area they knew." So.
Wow.
Yeah. I miss Bruce a lot. Yeah. I still try to look after Gina as much as possible and take sure she's all cool and everything.
Well, she's come out to a few of my shows there in Fort Worth, and she's a good egg. So
Oh yeah, she's a sweet, and she was unbelievably strong and amazing for him during that whole situation. I just have such respect for her. It's just
well,
amazing.
she was his angel, and now she's
Absolutely.
an angel on earth because she really kind of helped him fight till the very end.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of bulletproof. Pretty strange. Kerry, this has been an excellent walk down memory lane,
Yeah.
and counting our birthday candles on the cake a little bit, and not too many embarrassing moments. If anything, trophies on a shelf, right? They might be dusty and
Yeah.
old, but that's how I like it. So we
Well,
appreciate
I've been
you.
blessed to be with some cool stuff, be able to get on some cool stuff and be around some nice people.
You're still doing it. You're not slowing down. You're still involved. You're still doing,
I got to send you the Iron Jaw stuff.
Yeah, I think those guys sent me a CD. I have that CD, but yeah,
I'll get something else to send you.
yeah, send me some stuff, man. Well, it's been great talking to you, Dave. You wanna?
No, I just wanted to say thanks for joining us today. I unlike Jason, I've never met you before, and I really enjoyed picking your brain. And your resume is very impressive. And we thank you for all your contributions to Texas metal and music in general. And I personally thank you for Hagfish.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I got to talk a little bit about that as well. And
I thank you for Agony Column and Signs of Life.
Yeah. And we wish you continued success. We wish you continued success in all you do, and thank you for all you've done, and thank you for joining us today. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guest today, Kerry Crafton, on the Talk Louder podcast.